Great. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Council Transportation Committee meeting of October 2nd, 2023. The meeting is started at 6:32 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting allowing public comment both in person and virtually. Instructions for addressing the committee virtually may be found on the posted agenda, and I believe we have one over there for our in-person and then online for those virtual. We'll move on to item 2, which is roll call. The Public Works Director will take attendance by roll.
Thank you. Chairperson Kamei.
Here.
Councilmember Matichak.
Here.
And Mayor Hicks.
Here. Great. So we'll move on to item 3, oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this section. State law prohibits the committee from acting on non-agenda items. Would any member of the public on the line or in person like to provide comment on a non-agenda item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom, or you may approach the lectern, and I believe there's cards if you would like to give public comment. We'll take in-person speakers first, and we will work through staff to display the 3-minute timer on the screen. There's any public comment. Anyone in person wanting to give public comment? All right, we do have somebody virtually, so we'll move on. Do you want me to unmute? Sure. Vance Wagner?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm calling in about the proposed change on Sleeper and Grant. I just want to confirm this is the right time for me to speak.
We will be moving on to Grant and Sleeper. That's item 5.2. We're on item 3 right now.
Okay, please apologies for getting the order wrong, but thank you, I'll hold.
Yes, 5.2 will be the one. Thank you. All right, I think that concludes public comment. So we will move on to item 4, which is our consent calendar. We have 2 items. 4.1 is to approve the meeting minutes, and item 4.2 is the California State Transportation Agency Transit Intercity Rail Capital Grant. The consent calendar will be approved in one motion unless any member of the committee would like to remove an item. Would any member like to make comment or remove an item? All right. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on either consent item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or approach the lectern. We'll take in person first if there are any. Okay, we don't see any, and I do not see any virtually. So I'll bring the item back for committee action. Yes, committee member Matichak.
Thank you. I'll move. We approve the consent calendar.
Great. A second. Okay, Mayor Hicks second. So we have a motion and a second. So shall we just do a raise hand of votes? Okay, all those in favor? All right, that is unanimous by the committee. So we'll move on to item 5, which is new business. Item 5.1 is our California Street Complete Street Improvements Pilot Project 21-40. Staff presentation will be provided by Juan Nguyen, Associate Civil Engineer.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, committee members. My name is Juan Nguyen. I am an Associate Civil Engineer with the Public Works Department. I'm here today to provide update on the design of the pilot phase for the California Complete Street Improvements and to obtain feedback from CTC on the corridor layout, including vertical elements. Joining leader in this presentation are Marcelo Consentino and Trent McGovern, design consultant from PKF Engineers. Next slide, please. Background. In 2015, staff completed the California Escula Shoreline Complete Street Feasibility Study. The objective is to create safe, comfortable, convenient conditions for our travel modes, including automobile, pedestrian, bicycle, and transit. Starting out with a pilot program using pavement markings, and temporary improvements. In December 2021, Council authorized a professional services agreement with PKF engineers for designing the pilot phase with limits from Showers Drive to Ortega Avenue. In June 2022, Council directed staff to expand the project limits to Shoreline Boulevard. In September 2022, Council authorized an amendment to PKF agreement to accommodate the expanded scope for this pilot phase. Next, please. I will hand it to Trent to talk about the project location.
Thank you, Juan. As you said, my name is Trent McGowan. I'm a civil engineer at BKF Engineers. This slide will provide us some context and provide the project location. Highlighted orange is California Street. That is the corridor we're speaking about, from Showers Drive on the west to Shoreline Boulevard on the east. You can see to the north is Central Expressway. El Camino is to the south. There's a few street names up there: Ortega, Rengstorff, Escuela, Mariposa. Those will be discussed further in this presentation and be referenced. Next slide, please. The existing condition can be split into two segments. The first segment is Showers Drive to Mariposa Avenue. You can see that the corridor has 2 through lanes in each direction, parking on one or both sides. In some areas, there's a 2-way center left turn lane. And in this segment, it's primarily multifamily housing. There are striped bike lanes next to the curb if there's no parking, or between the parking and the through lanes. There are some challenges on this corridor, including high speed of vehicles, limited crossing opportunities for pedestrians, and minimal bike infrastructure. There is no buffer between the parked cars and the bikes, and there's no buffer between the fast moving vehicles and the bikes. There's also frequently delivery vehicles that block what is left of the bike lane. Next slide, please. This is a section showing the existing on the bottom and the proposed pilot improvements for this corridor. The number of lanes will be reduced from 4 to 3, which is known as a road diet. There'll be 1 travel lane in each direction and a center 2-way left turn lane. The bike lane, which is adjacent to the curb, is parking protected. And between the parking and the bike lane, there is a striped buffer that features vertical elements. We'll be discussing those more in depth later. Next slide, please. Second segment is from Mariposa Avenue to Shoreline Boulevard. This segment is primarily single-family homes. You can see the center of the road has a landscape median that will stay, as well as all the landscaping in it. This segment also has 2 lanes in each direction, parking on each side, and a bike lane striped between the parking and the travel lane. Next slide, please. And again, this is a corresponding cross-section showing the pilot improved conditions. The segment also will have a road diet from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, since there won't be a center left turn lane. Again, we have parking protected bike lanes with a buffer zone between the parked cars, and the bike lane. Again, with vertical elements that we'll be discussing in depth later. These improvements aim to reduce speeds of vehicles on the road, provide a safe, separate space for bikes to use the corridor, and provide pedestrians with more crossings that have more visibility. To continue talking about improvements, I'll pass it to Marcelo.
Thank you, Trent. Good evening, community members and attendees. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a typical pilot improvements at signalized intersections. California Street is reduced to 1 lane in each direction, making room for parking protected bike lanes as you approach the intersection. The lane reduction also allows for protected intersection features to be added to signalized intersections as space permits. High visibility crosswalks delineate the pedestrian zones, while green striping within the intersection delineates the bicycle path. Dashed green striping delineates conflict or mixing zones. In this case, bicycles share the space with buses. Truck turn templates for garbage truck clear the intersection islands outlined by vertical elements in the pilot project. Next slide, please. This slide shows typical improvements at non-signalized intersections. Again, reducing the street to 1 lane in each direction, we make room for parking protected bike lanes in the departure side of the intersection. Project will add high visibility crosswalks and green conflict striping through the intersection. This layout is also applicable at signalized intersections where protective island elements are not feasible. Next slide, please. Pilot project will also add 3 mid-block crossings, which will include accessibility ramps at sidewalks, raised islands between the bike lane and the travelway, and raised refuge island in the median, high visibility crosswalk, and flashing beacon system with streetlights. Next slide, please. In March 2023, we presented this pilot project to BPAC, sharing largely what you've already seen. This feedback we received and what we have done to address it, we can just talk about next. They asked us to look at 3rd mid-block crossing between Escuela and Rengstorff, and we're currently evaluating a location for it. They also asked us to take a look at vertical elements, which we're about to discuss here with you today. We're currently also looking at the performance criteria and means to keep delivery vehicles from blocking the bike lane. Next slide, please. These are the various types of vertical elements that we'll be using along the corridor for the pilot project. In some cases, we'll be mixing these elements together. We have K71 channelizers, floppies posts with either long or short base, rubber curbs, armadillos, and planter boxes. Just to note, this is only one example of a planter box, not necessarily the product that we're going to select. We haven't finalized the actual product or plant species for the planter boxes. We'll be working with our community services department to identify the product and species that are best suited. And we do expect that additional maintenance costs associated with maintaining these planter boxes. Next slide, please. Now we'll walk you through the corridor so that you can see where we're applying these vertical elements. We're doing this to test the different vertical elements and see how they function along the corridor. With the parking protected improvements and vertical elements, we do expect that there will be a loss of on-street parking to accommodate this new configuration. Shown here between showers to Ortega, planter boxes with K71 delineators. We're also introducing a mid-block crossing and parking on the south side of the street. East of Ortega to the middle of the block, we're installing floppies posts with small base and armadillos. Though not shown here, we are evaluating the location of that 3rd mid-block crossing between Ortega and Rengstorff. Next slide, please. From the mid-block west of Rengstorff to Rengstorff intersection, we're installing rubber curb and floppies with small base. From the Rengstorff intersection westerly to mid-block crossing, we will be installing floppies posts with long base. Next slide, please. From the mid-block crossing to Escuela, we're installing K71 posts. And from Escuela to mid-block, we are installing armadillos and floppies with a small base. Next slide, please. From the mid-block east of Chiquita to Mariposa, we're installing planters. And from Mariposa to Pettis, we're installing K71 posts and planters. Next slide, please. From Pettis to Palo Alto, we're installing K71 posts. And from Palo Alto to Shoreline, we're installing floppies with the long base. Parking here will be affected as we introduce the mixing zones and addition of parking protected bike lanes. Now I'll hand out to Hua, who will discuss the next steps.
For next steps, we anticipate to complete the design by spring 2024 and to start construction in summer 2024. After the design is complete, staff will return to BPAC and CTC to identify the criteria for determining the effectiveness of the pilot. We are looking for CTC feedbacks on the review, the corridor layout and vertical elements. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll bring the item back to our committee, and do any member of the committee have questions? Start with Mayor Hicks.
So I'm going to say thank you very much. Visuals. I'm going to say I did talk to a resident who said that found some of the terms technical and hard for residents. And I'm new to this committee, so I'm going to ask for some definitions before I get into the kind of the meat of the issue. Can you explain to me what a corner rubber curb bulb out is?
Sure. Let's see. Want to go to the slide that shows that element?
Or you can describe it if that's.
So
better.
in essence, rubber curb is a temporary type of curb that's either adhered
The slide, but
held into the existing asphalt concrete pavement or adhered via some sort of adhesive, right? Preferably both. And so the island at the intersection, the protected intersection, essentially extends into the intersection. And so that rubber curb delineates the island itself. And traditionally, you'd use vertical elements such as posts inside of that to further draw attention to that intersection at the height of like a driveway.
So it's going to be a curb made of rubber. Okay. And also this was in the staff report, what are advanced stop bars?
Advanced stop bars, you can see there right where there's the crosswalks, right? The high visibility crosswalks. We don't want vehicles to stop right at the
I see.
crosswalk,
So
so you
tell
set
you
that back.
I never
Yeah.
knew they were called that. Okay, thank you.
No worries.
So now maybe the meat of the issue. Can you, I understand that this is a pilot and that we're evaluating it for, and then even planning the pilot has taken a long time. So my understanding is we probably don't want to delay that more, but I would like to know more about how the transition from pilot to long-term solution, how that will go. What things that we decide now will become inflexible in the future? For example, lane widths. I imagine from what I'm seeing that planter boxes and stripings and bollards, those all seem changeable. What are the things that become fixed, or are they all changeable in the future?
Want me to take this one, Robert?
Go right ahead. Thank you.
So as part of the preliminary design, we did study, we pretty much laid out all the permanent improvements. And then we took a look and see what of that we would install in a temporary means, right? And I think the key here is to reduce that or do a seamless transition, right? To not have to restripe and rework the area. So in essence, the main difference would be just temporary planters in the pilot condition. The final condition, you would have to raise bulb outs. Ideally, we want to put the raised bulb outs in the same areas that you see here that pertain to striping, right? So as to not have to redo a lot of the work that we've already done.
Yeah, thank you. Robert Gonzalez, Principal Civil Engineer in the Civil Infrastructure Group. So my group is tasked with delivering this project. So the intent here was to do a true pilot. So if the question was what elements are not reversible, the intent here is if we go down this road and we try this out and we realize that none of these elements are working for us, we could practically reverse everything. That's a possibility. We don't expect that. We think that this is going to be a successful pilot.
That's not where I was going.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that the elements that are probably going to be the most fixed would be the road diet itself. Like we think that element by itself, the reduction in lanes is going to be a functional improvement. And the other ones, we can evaluate any of the elements that Marcelo recommended and find out if they work. And that's really why we give you such a variety of vertical elements, for example.
So another question I have is in one section, which I think was, so in one section, the main travel lane is, if I have it right, you can correct me, show the photos, correct me. One, I think the main travel lane is 11 feet and another it's 12 feet. So I'm wondering why, what's the reason for the difference? Is it like a mass transit thing, a bus thing, or is it just some other reason that I haven't thought of? So why on one is it 11 and one in 12? And then in the future, you know, after we've evaluated the pilot, could something like the 12-foot road reduce to an 11-foot one? Or has that become kind of fixed at this?
So those are really design challenges, and why we asked BKF to come on board and look at this. The corridor itself changes slightly in width. We have a fixed median in one section of the corridor and an open median, an open alignment in the other corridor. So you can see that there's a few variables there. So what we did is we tried to balance the width of the bike lane, the width of the buffer, the width of the travel lane, and the width of the median.
Addition I'd like to add.
Yeah, sure. And so all of those have minimums, all of those have criteria to deliver. And then we found that one area that we could provide a 12-foot travel lane was in one section of the corridor. And in another section, we had to narrow that down to 11. So
I would like to add on, I was just comparing the two cross sections. Sorry, Don Cameron, Public Works Director. The cross section you saw with the 11-foot travel lanes is also the one with the center turn lane of 10 feet. So what that basically means is you get a little shy away room, a little extra room there because you have that center turn lane that gives you a little extra breathing room when you're in the 11-foot lane. The section of the roadway, and it may vary still based upon right of way, the section of the roadway that's 12 feet is actually constrained on both sides. One side is the median we're keeping with the trees, and the other side is your parking lane. So with the buses that go down there, I think, I would like to think, I'm speaking with BKF, that was taken into consideration that you really do want 12 feet when you're constrained on both sides like that, because there are buses that go down here.
I think that's all my questions for now, but if I think of one more, I'll take a second pass.
All right, Councilmember Matischak.
Yeah, so thank you. I have a question about why are we doing a pilot with so many different vertical elements? I'm assuming you have experience doing these, and so you're recommending this, but I'm trying to figure out, well, what are we gonna learn? And what have you learned from other pilots that's saying, yes, we should do so many different types of vertical treatments?
Marcelo Cosentino, BKF Engineers, thank you for your question. While a lot of agencies are putting up these, pilot studies or sometimes permanent improvements with standard delineators, right? I think the city sought, based on our BPAC meeting, BPAC recommended looking at various different types of vertical elements. And that's one of the reasons why we started taking a look at these.
If I may give a little context, this corridor is 1.2 miles long. And yes, when we were at the BPAC meeting, there was different opinions on what makes for the best vertical elements. So since this is truly a pilot, an opportunity to test, that's why staff said, okay, this is a very long corridor, so it really creates opportunity to test different vertical elements. And then as part of the evaluation process, see how well they function for all users of the road. And that could help inform the more permanent project as well as future complete streets projects. Did you want to add anything?
no, I think that was my point. Thank you.
So when you say how well they function, what does that mean? Like people running into them or people disregarding them? Like what are we gonna learn?
So I think there's a couple elements here that we can learn from. One is a sense of safety. So we're gonna be looking for feedback from riders, from pedestrians, how they feel about certain elements. They don't feel like a floppy is as protective as one of the smaller, fatter ones, the K71s. And then we'll also see, as you described, how sturdy they are, how performative they are from a traffic or transportation aspect. Some of these we'll get more call outs for some of these for our maintenance crews to repair those. So we'll be able to pull in some data, we'll be able to get some feedback from users of the corridor, and all of that comes into play when we decide which ones make sense for this corridor. And as Director Cameron said, this is really something to inform us of multiple corridors that we're going to be looking into. Down the road, we're going to be looking at Middlefield, we're going to be looking at other corridors for these types of improvements.
Okay, and in BKF's experience, what has been your experience with the different types of dividers there?
From BKF experience, we've installed various different types of dividers. Mainly K71s, you see those practically everywhere. With regards to the floppy posts, we've seen those as well. And those will sometimes, depending on the proximity to the roadway, can be knocked off, especially in parking zones, right? But you have that based on the learned experience of the public, right? As they use the corridor with the parking. So we'll see how each of these will fare as people use the corridor, whether it be parking, whether it be biking or travel. So, but we've installed all of these types of features.
Where would you expect delivery vehicles to now try to walk?
That's one of the things that we're looking into, and we've met with a few, and we've had to bring on some of the experience we've had in other projects. Just recently we've worked with some East Bay agencies as well, with the same question as to where delivery vehicles park. And you can park before or after driveways and as they make the deliveries, and also depends on the use, whether it's a residential zone versus a commercial zone, right?
Do they park in the travel lane?
They don't need to park in the travel. We can make space for them. Like you see in the upper left-hand corner, there is some space there. The zone's fairly large, so we can designate a zone for delivery vehicle.
So I thought you were saying a parking zone, and I was thinking the parking zone might be full. But you're saying actually you could
A
designate.
delivery vehicle zone.
Okay. Let's see, and how much is parking on this street, now it's a long street, utilized?
There was a parking study that was completed, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. So staff has gone out there to observe parking. There's both on and off-street parking along this corridor, particularly from Showers to Escuela. There's significant off-street parking as well as that inventory of parking. We are going to lose some on-street parking. That's going to be part of this. On some of the sections, I think on the Showers to Ortega, we're actually gaining parking on one side, but for the most part, we are going to be losing some parking on street. That's mitigated. That's balanced out with some of the existing off-street parking. So I don't have numbers for you in front.
Okay. I'm curious to know that if the off-street parking is full and people are using then the on-street parking or visitors or something. Kind of curious about that.
It's often a balance of both. Sometimes a resident would prefer to park as close to their front door as possible. Other times they prefer to park on street because they're interested in going on their way, on their way to work. So they'll align their car in one direction or the other. They might park across the street if they choose to.
Okay. Let's see. And I might have been in here and I missed it, but what is the cost of the pilot?
We have a construction cost estimate.
Was it 11? Plus 35% cost estimate.
Yeah, we have not finalized the cost estimate
There's
yet
been some changes.
because
Staff will get back to you on that.
Since the PPAC meeting, we have incorporated various vertical elements, and we still, try to fit in like how many of those vertical elements throughout the corridor, and that could dictate like increase the project cost a lot.
Okay,
I'll note that, again, council asked us to greatly expand the limits of this project, and when we were putting together the amended capital improvement program budget for this, we really didn't know how much then it would cost. So we threw a little more money in, knowing very well when it was time to come to council, because that would be our next step with the approve the plans and specification authorized to bid. By then, we'll have a full engineer's estimate, and the odds are we are going to be asking council to appropriate additional funding to the project.
I was just curious. I think that's all the questions I have for right now.
Thank you. All right, I have a few questions / things I'm hoping to see when it comes back to council. So for the mid-block crossings, there's 3 new mid-block crossings. I don't remember seeing it called out where, well, maybe in the photo. Could you remind us where all the mid-blocks are gonna be? So they're not existing, or that's already existing and you're just gonna improve them? Can you clarify?
So there are no mid-block crossing existed. So the first one we proposing is between the Showers Drive and Ortega. As you can see here, see the mouse cursor.
Oh, I see, okay.
That's the first one, and the second one will be between Drainstaff and Ortega. So this location is not in it's not shown in the exhibit yet, because we still evaluate the location for this crossing due to existing SFPUC right of way. So we try to not encroach into their driveway because due to the cumbersome permit process. We still, but we will include it. We will select the location and include it within the project.
Okay.
And the next location is between Rainstaff and Escula, and we show it here. So this is the total block cost of this project.
I'm just trying to imagine where they are, because I know it's mostly residential the street, so I'm trying to orient myself. Okay, and so I thought it was helpful that the bus stops are noted on the map, but does the shuttle stop over here? The community shuttle? I know that we expanded the route and I just can't recall if it's there as well. But I would say, yeah, that's what, so I would say I'd love for the map that comes back to council to show where the VTA bus stop is, as well as where the community shuttle stops, and maybe that can help inform some of the mid-block crossings. I don't want to get too far into comments, but that's kind of, I'd like to see that. And then is this part of the Safe Route to School? I know we got a letter from somebody involved with the schools on wanting to encourage students to use this.
So staff can confirm that. I believe it is on the Safe Routes to School. But
Okay, perfect.
don't hold me to that one. I can confirm that.
Yeah, so I would say too, when this comes back to council, if we can just note if it is part of the Safe Route to School. And then I was curious, when we're talking about the different vertical treatments, I know we adopted our Vision Zero plan. And so how do the different treatments connect with our Vision Zero plans? That might not be a question that can be answered tonight, but that is a question that I do have, and I don't want to teeter into comments, but that's a question. And then for the vertical treatments, when it comes back to council, I think it'd be really helpful to know, are they determined by miles per hour in a certain zone? So in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, you typically use the K71. For 35, it's the Armadillo. Is that looking to be?
It's typically designated by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD. As far as the spacing goes, it's recommended based on.
Can we say the
acronym?
acronyms for everybody else?
Yeah, that's what I say, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control
TCD.
Devices, MUTCD.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's typically what governs the spacing for these, but also the traffic speed for the roadway. With any road diet, as Trent defined earlier, as you reduce the lanes, reduce the roadway widths, also traffic tends to slow down, right? It's also a traffic calming feature. So that will determine, based on this next phase, the spacing for each one of these types of vertical elements. So we're looking at all that in this next phase.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw too that the evaluation criteria will come back to us. Is that
Yes,
correct?
we'll come
For
back.
summer 2024. So is the idea then too with the potential construction that it'd be like during summer break? Because that's why I was asking about the safe routes to school. Was that part of it, or that it just aligns that summer would work the best?
Generally, it aligns and it's gonna be a longer construction project than just the summer.
Yeah, this is a long corridor, so we expect this to be maybe a 9-month construction project.
Okay.
We'll do our best to align that with school breaks, but construction is construction.
Yes, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh,
If you're not.
I've done it. Yes, yes. Mayor Hicks has a question.
Yes, I found a couple more questions. So, my first question is, and I'm trying not to slide into comments. How are you gonna judge the effectiveness of the pilot? And in particular, I'm interested in all of it, but to me, most of the improvements seem bike oriented. But most of the people I know, my kids went to school near here. So most of the people I knew here were trying to walk here. Walk from home to Target. And I think we're trying to encourage walking as well as biking. And not to try to get to my question, but it's a hostile place to walk. It's, it's hot, it's unpleasant. So for the longer term, and frankly, as the friends I've known who used to walk there, as soon as they were able to drive, they drive now. And that's what we're trying to discourage. We're trying to encourage more walking and biking. So will the criteria, will it include more than just bike safety and pedestrian safety? Frankly, pedestrians, I know a pedestrian actually was hit there once, but most people, it's just because it's a brutally unpleasant walk is why they don't want to walk there. So are we going to be judging how this affects walkability, which to me, except for the mid-block crossings, which are good, hardly at all. And how we could improve that in the future.
So we expect this pilot to be in place for at least a year. It could be significantly longer depending on funding. So that's why you see such a comprehensive pilot in front of you. While that's in place, we have a lot of opportunity to collect data. So some of that will be raw data, like we can put down tubes and count cars and approximate speeds. But also we have an opportunity to reach out to the community with a survey, with additional postcards. We can set up a survey online with QR codes. So there's a lot of ways for us to start engaging with the community. We haven't figured that out. We want to go back to BPAC and start having that conversation while we're in the final parts of design. And as we go into construction, we want to make sure we're settling on some of those. So we've got some ideas. We want to take it back to BPAC and evaluate those. But a survey is a good example where you would be able to ask a couple different types of questions on how do you feel? Like, is there a perception of safety for a rider or a pedestrian? How do you feel? How does the experience change in a car to dropping off your child at school, that sort of thing? Church, there's a lot of different uses on this corridor.
Okay, so there is a path forward for more than just bike safety, but also for a plethora of other things.
Yeah,
is what I'm hearing.
we're gonna be identifying as many users of the corridor as we can, so we have a comprehensive approach to this.
And then my last question is, beyond the pilot, which I like to hear that it's gonna be at least a year long. Will we also be able to consider for the longer time, kind of the much more, I don't know what to call them, like rich, more finished, long-term solutions like raised or sidewalk level bike lanes, things like that, that really would be more friendly to the community and offer a better gateway or corridor, gateway to San Antonio or gateway back to the downtown? Are those things that can be considered for the long term as well?
We will certainly look at all of the elements that we like and PPAC and CTC and all the feedback we're getting. If we like elements, we will make those sturdier, we'll make those more permanent. In terms of a raised bicycle lane, I need to balance cost. We need to be able to communicate with CTC and council about what those types of elements would cost in such a long corridor. But we can certainly look at that. And we would look to other examples as well. Instead of us relying on BKF to generate raw costs, we can go to other communities and see how they've treated corridors like this and the type of performance they get back on something like a raised bike lane.
I do want to say thank you for helping to manage expectations. As you saw in your packet, our current estimate to convert these temporary improvements into permanent improvements, assuming that what works here really works design well, and including making the planters more permanent with irrigation, because they're going to be a real maintenance challenge while they're in place. But we've been talking to CSD, they're trying to be in position to be able to keep them. But we're looking at $30 million. So to take it even further than this and look at additional things, all of that will add costs. So again, that will be a council decision, including hoping to identify where we're going to get the funding. This is one of the reasons why I appreciate you saying at least a year. I believe it's going to be more than a year because we don't actually have that kind of money readily available. And we're going to save up for it and maybe just do a block at a time, take it in smaller chunks. So these are all the things that we will have to look at and balance. But there's a lot here that will do very well. And other cities have done this level of types of improvements and treatments, and it will really change the corridor, the look and feel of the corridor.
Questions? Okay, so now we will take public comment. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or approach the lectern. We'll take in-person speakers first. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Just a second, she'll get the timer for you.
Sure. Good evening. Thanks for holding this session. My name is Ken Kirshner. I'm a citizen advocate with the Silicon Valley Bike Coalition. And I just want to express just how absolutely over the moon enthusiastic I am with this design. It's going to change that corridor in a revolutionary way. It's going to completely change the character of that neighborhood and turn into really an urban village. And I think that's the intent, and I can't tell you guys how excited we are to see this happen. It couldn't happen fast enough. So the design may not be perfect, but it is so much better than what's there today. We can't lose sight of like the improvement this is going to bring. You asked about walkability. I want to emphasize that in other areas, a parking protected buffer is going to protect the pedestrians as well. So it's going to change the perceived safety of the pedestrians walking on sidewalks in that area as well. One suggestion would be to consider a bike counter to get bike traffic before and after. So you can see the actual numeric improvements. And I've personally ridden this route with the fear of being doored, and it's excruciating right now. So turning this into a corridor for all ages and abilities, I think these guys have done a fantastic job on their design. I also wanted to suggest that the planter boxes are going to be a very popular vertical element. It just relieves the kind of asphalt jungle nature of streets by nature, and putting that treatment in the middle of the community area, especially near the Escuela intersection, would be a possible way of kind of making it more comfortable where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. I'll save any other comments, but I want to thank you guys for the fantastic work. It's awesome.
Anyone else in person like to speak on this item?
Sure. Oh, you go ahead.
Okay, go for it.
Hi, I'm Kirill Stoimanov. I'm a bike commuter and I go down California every day, and feel like you just said everything I was about to say. So I just want to say a +1 to every one of his points. I literally end up in the travel lane most of the time because I know, statistically speaking, getting doored is the most dangerous thing for a biker. You're likely not going to get hit from behind, or either getting doored or getting hit from a driveway or something is the most likely thing. So yeah, big +1 to the parking protected bike lanes. I think that would be fantastic. And Mayor Hicks, I was gonna say for walkability, I think that would help. And then I think we could also take a page out of Palo Alto's book in terms of like lower visibility, like more plant overhang actually makes cars drive slower and provides more shade. So like it's kind of a, it's kind of like a not counterintuitive thing, right? Like if cars can't see as far, they're gonna have to drive slower. So I mean, it's not really possible to make the street bend more, but if there were more trees and canopy and stuff, that would provide more shade for walking and also make visibility lower. So cars would be forced to drive slower. And I personally have seen with the K71s and the floppy things, I mean, cars who are gonna disregard paint are gonna disregard those. So, I mean, I would also like to strongly advocate for those planter boxes. And as to like the maintenance problem, I mean, maybe succulents or something that's more hardy, like native to California would be good because they would require less water. And yeah, I've already, this is anecdotal, but I've seen a lot. I mean, almost every day I see delivery vehicles stopping in the travel lane there already, because parking is already a nightmare on that street. I mean, it's always full. So I think the dedicated delivery zone, they're doing that in San Francisco in some places. And I think there's enough demand for it, right? Like people are ordering Amazon and stuff enough. So yeah, I also want to thank you all for doing this. I mean, Mountain View is like one of the better places in the state for biking and walking and stuff because of stuff like this. So thank you very much.
So I'm Harold Russell. I am a Mountain View resident, and I feel like I'm going to be just hitting that +1 button over and over here. Also as a bicycle commuter. I did have a question about a comment, I guess, on the 12-foot versus 11-foot, because I thought that 11-foot was the VTA width that they required for buses, and it seems like smaller is better because it would slow traffic down, rather than bigger is better because you have the room for it. And I figured I would also like say that planter boxes, I understand they're more expensive, but I do feel like they will make you feel more protected both as a pedestrian and as a cyclist, because they're a substantial thing. And I wonder if it is possible to do something like an adopt a highway where businesses or residents could adopt a planter box and keep it alive, and maybe you could rotate that around, but just as a potential idea there. I am like totally grateful that you all are doing this. I'm excited to go riding on it with my son. It was such a great experience the last time we took it, and it's one of the better streets. So also plus wanting the delivery vehicle dedicated zones, that sounds like a great solution. Wow. Okay, I think that's basically, the sooner better than later, because I would hate for anything that we all probably agree with, but if it's gonna make it take substantially longer, this seems pretty great. Let's go there and then work it out. Thank you.
In-person public comment on this item?
April Webster. I am on the Caltrans District 4 Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission Active Transportation Working Group co-chair. I'm also on the SVBC Policy Committee, and I'm a member, a local. I've lived here for over a decade. I've biked around here and biked around the world. So I'm very active in this community, and I just want to say to start this, I'm very happy. This is a solid design. This is one of the more progressive designs I've seen. I applaud the city for listening to all of the input from the community and doing an excellent job of hearing us and putting into practice, implementing it through your design, everything that you heard from us. It is amazing. I just want to start with that. I want to echo what other people have said. The sooner that you can make this happen, the better. We've been waiting for some of these projects for a long time, and we are really excited to see this hit the ground. As a Canadian, what we would say is get her done. So that's the main message I want to put out there. I want to talk a little bit about some of the elements of the design, just in case other people aren't familiar. What is really impressive in what you've done is in the design itself. The road diet, 4 lanes to 2 lanes is amazing. This is a design element that automatically slows down traffic. There are fewer lanes that people have to cross when they're walking across a crosswalk. Wonderful. Parking protected bike lanes that many of people have pointed out protects. There's this extra barrier of large metal, 2,000-pound cars that are protecting you from moving cars. The Dooring Zone, thank you for adding in that buffer for the Dooring Zone. Wonderful. The mid-block pedestrian crossings, as you saw, some of those blocks are really long. If you are a senior, I've actually been somewhat disabled. I had a hip replacement done recently, and I realized how painful it is to walk around. So I'm very happy that you've added more of those in. Several options for protecting the bike lanes. I think that's wonderful, because you're doing a proper user study there, evaluating the standard options for vertical treatment and being able to get that hard data to understand the different benefits, the costs, so that you can make smart, informed decisions later on throughout the community. Wonderful. I know I'm running out of time. I wanted to talk about Escuela. And if you can, that is the heart of the community. There's a church around there, there's a school, a lot of traffic, especially pedestrian traffic around there. If you could put some of the green treatments in there, some of those green planters, that could have such an impact on a large part of the community. And then finally, someone talked about it. I'm up. I have so much more to say, but thank you. 2 thumbs up from me.
I have a question for you.
Oh, sure.
You mentioned all those organizations at the beginning. Are you speaking on their behalf?
No.
Okay.
But I'm part of these committees, and so I hear and see a lot about where policy and standards are going within both the region and California. So when I see things, helps me be informed. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other in-person speakers? Yes. Please don't be shy, because we have people online ready to talk to. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julia. I came in a little late, but I thought I mentioned hearing about raised crosswalks, and I just want to say huge supporter of those. I'd love to see it here because most people, they do not see you. I've gotten people take up the whole intersection for the crosswalk or the whole crosswalk, And I've had people come like within 6 inches of me with their giant car. So I really like the idea of being heightened up a little bit and having like it act as a speed bump for people to slow down. And I just like to see more. Yeah, I think I heard about, were you guys doing that with this?
We are not.
Oh, not? Oh, well then I'd love to see it. If you guys can implement raised crosswalks somewhere there on the protected intersection, I'd love to see that too, to help with pedestrian traffic. Because I feel much safer on those, and I know a lot of people do. So I'd just like to see raised crosswalks for pedestrians.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna move on to virtual if no one's coming up. Okay.
Hi, I'm have two names. Let's see, I'm Cynthia Palacio, retiree of the city of Mountain View. And I'm also Cindy Newman in the Neighborhood Watch captain. I live at 2430 Villanueva Way off of Eunice. I often travel down California. I ride a bike and I have been injured on the bike on the Castro Wiggle Waggle because of one of those bumpers. So, you know, the armadillos, I think they're called. So if maybe give consideration to backing off one bumper where you have driveways and other things so that the bicyclist has a chance to avoid collision with trucks and other cars coming out of the driveways. I was lucky, it was school and 2 lanes of traffic northbound on Castro were stopped when a truck came out. And I don't know how he could miss me. I'm in a protected bike lane on the green pavement. I'm wearing bright yellow. I had to avoid him, but I hit the bumper and I went flying off my bike, rolled through 2 lanes of traffic. Thank God everyone was stopped. My bike was blown apart and I was late for my bike to work day picture because I was lecturing the guy for 30 minutes because he was driving away from the scene. And my brother was also injured and died as a result of not wearing his helmet and hitting the pavement on a less than 1 or 2 mile an hour, but not even that, whatever you could do at 50 or 60 years of age. What I want to know is, what about the garbage trucks? How are you going to pick up garbage in that section of single family homes between Mariposa and Shoreline? I've worked in the garbage and recycling division here. And those arms, automated arms, only go so many feet. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emil Abraham. So kudos to the engineering team and BPAC, everyone who was involved in this project. So I absolutely love this design, and I'm hoping it gets implemented quickly. So I love the protected, the bicycle lanes, the parking buffer. It feels a lot safer on my bike, and I'm sure plenty of others have already said that. Thank you very much for the road diet. Like keeping the lanes narrow and reducing the number of lanes is a super effective and natural way just to reduce speed. So I love that. I see that some lanes are 12 feet and others are 11. If there's any way to reduce those further, that would be awesome. I love the planters, and I know you guys are testing different vertical elements, so I really hope that they win. They are super pleasurable to bike by. It's lovely to see, to break up like the concrete and stuff like that. And yeah, these are awesome changes, and I hope to see a lot more of these changes in the rest of Mountain View as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry. My name is Evan Crow. I live actually on the corner of California and Escuela, so I'm very excited about this. Everyone has been positive about us. I won't reiterate the positive things, but one slight concern I have is I have lived in a different city where we had a similar project converting a very fast multi-lane road to a parking protected bike lane. And especially in the initial transfer of traffic, it creates kind of a situation where the bike lane all of a sudden is not visible to the cars. And then it's a possible situation where a car can just forget to look. And me riding my bike, I've actually had a couple of close calls in that situation. So I would encourage potentially looking at, increasing the visibility, especially on California, like on my block, there's many driveways and cars are used to driving at 35 miles an hour and turning into the driveway. So it possibly increasing the visibility and also encouraging, good communication with the public as we transition into this. But yeah, overall, I think the sooner this can happen, the better, because it's currently a pain to bike on. Thanks.
All right, okay, we'll move to virtual speakers. So first we have Tracy Chu.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you so much for all the hardworking city council and city staff. I am a longtime resident of along the corridor. I've actually been advocating and following this project for 12 years. Back in 2011, 2012, we had 3 pedestrian fatalities on California Street. One was on Pettis, one was on Franklin, and one was on Escuela, the tragedy William Ware, which many people are aware of. And this was a real watershed moment for our neighborhood. At that time, I had never spoken at a city council meeting. I knew nothing about street design or street safety. But over the years, myself and our neighbors have really, educated each other a lot and really have been advocating for this. So this is really wonderful to see. So like everyone else, I'm a +1 on this project, couldn't be more pleased. But just like the last speaker, I have a lot of concerns about this project. Everyone here is, of course, really enthusiastic about it. But, the street has many users and there's going to be controversy, I'm sure. One person's, traffic calming is another person's like an extra minute on their commute. So I anticipate there's going to be a lot of controversy. And so my question and my request is, how are you going to, roll this out to educate the public about what's coming and why we are doing this? Because I think people hear you take a lane of traffic away and they don't really know the rest of the context, and it can really sort of build a lot of maybe negative feelings about the project and not provide the context that, 3 people have died, on this corridor, and we need to really slow it down to save lives, literally save lives. So I had that question. And then my other question was just, it would be great if we can set some expectation on what the criteria of success is for this program. And it's not going to come without resistance. It's not going to be 100% positives. There are going to be some pockets of resistance, like the people I mentioned. And I think it would be helpful, in these conversations, as well as like talking to city council about, setting a realistic expectation of what that might be. That would hopefully not totally offset, all the positives. So that's it. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. Celia Paymer.
Hi.
Hi.
So I was calling because I'm really excited for this project. Celia Paymer, a resident of Mountain View for the past 15 years. I'm just really looking forward to this. I don't commute down California, but I do use it for transporting for more, going to activities. We use that route to take our kids to camp when they're at the teen center, the senior center, and the community center. And so right now we have to go past and go to Villa to go down because California is so rough. So I'm really looking forward to this as a way to make Mountain View a safe, bikeable community for all residents of all ages. Also, the other day, I think we had our PRC strategic meeting at the community center, and I biked from downtown, and it was really nice. I think it was less than 5 minutes. So, once we have a really nice, safe route, maybe even city staff members could bike between City Hall and the community center. So I look forward to all the opportunities that this is going to give. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Dadio.
Hi, just Mary Didio. I'm just really excited about this project and I'm looking forward to how much safer California is gonna feel and hoping that we see a lot, I'm expecting we're gonna see a big increase in the number of cyclists and pedestrians when it's such a better atmosphere. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Brown.
Didn't expect to see me here, did you?
Hi, Alex.
Hi. I don't want to get hit by cars. Please keep me from getting hit by cars. Thank you.
All right. So that concludes our in-person and public speaking. Trying to lower this hand. There we go. So I'll bring it back to the committee for comments and feedback to staff. No formal motion is required, but staff is looking for consensus if we have one, or general comments. Yeah, Mary, it's good.
Well, generally, I'm very happy about everything. I want to thank staff and the consultant and BPAC, if any members are around, and members of the public who've had input, and everybody else seconded, what many people said. I'm not going to go on at length. I think this is great and safer and, more than just good as a pilot. The only things that I would add are things that I've heard from members. Oh, I should say I have two more questions. One is, I liked the question somebody asked about how you're going to educate the public, and was wondering if you could make any comments on that.
Yeah, thank you. Robert Gonzalez, Principal Civil Engineer again. So thank you for the question. We appreciate that. So part of this will be outreach during design while we're developing it. You can see behind us some of the success we've had with outreach already. We spent a lot of time and effort, on mailings. So that's one of our backbone approaches, is to make sure that we're mailing out information. We can have a QR code on there, our website on there, so that people can gather more information during the design. And then as we're rolling it out, we'll do the same things. We'll be, along with the design elements that you see on the in front of you, we'll have signage. So we'll also be operating signage. I haven't spoken to our transportation manager yet about this, but we'll be working together on communicating perhaps directly to schools as well.
That was thank you. That was my first question. And my second, I did become curious when the speaker spoke about how you would be picking up the garbage in the residential area. What is the answer to that question?
Well, we've worked with Recology. In fact, we've met with them on a few occasions, a few projects, and we are looking at zones for garbage areas. In particular, for residential, there's three types, right? There's the large containers. There's the residential containers, and there also have a special pickup area, special pickup times where people call it for special pickup elements. But we're looking at those various different types of services at the same time developing zones throughout the corridor.
So zones where the trucks can get closer and reach the.
Correct, zones where there's types of access too, right? There's where trucks go in and pick up within the property, and when they don't have enough room, we may have to back in or front.
Hi, Ed Orango, Assistant Public Works Director, City of Livermore. I felt impelled to come up and speak to the garbage piece. Staff has been doing a fantastic job answering questions. For the garbage, it's going to be a re-education effort as we define new zones for the residential customers, where the location they place their garbage. So the bins typically are right at the curb, so the garbage truck will pull in and empty the garbage cans. So we anticipate that those garbage cans are going to have to come out next to where the new park zone is. So we're going to have to identify, and then it's going to be an education effort to all the residents along the corridor to share, this is where your new garbage.
Good, I'm glad you thought of that. So yeah, my only additional, kudos to everyone. My only additional comments are, I liked it when people said put planters, the pilot planters near Escuela, because that is kind of a hub of pedestrian activity. And I also liked when people said make sure there's visibility at driveways and cross streets. So probably don't put planters too close to there. But I think those are two important pieces of information for the pilot. And other than that, I am happy to hear that the pilot, once we put it up and it costs all that money, will go for a year or two, or who knows, maybe even more. But I also very much look forward to the next phase. And I think that it's really going to be possible to put in more trees and more green and additional things that will make it more pleasant for pedestrians and bikers, so that it's really used, really a pleasant place that encourages active transportation.
I do have a few questions. Is it possible to change the location of the planters? It looks like they are not right from either side of Escuela. I don't know how you chose where to put the vertical treatment, the different vertical treatments, but is it possible to put at least on one side of Escuela planters?
Sure.
Can you look at it?
One of the things we're hearing is when staff's back is to the audience, they have a harder time hearing the response also. Or if you want to join me over here, Robert.
Thank you. No, that's fine. That's fine. So, sorry, Commissioner Manager, can you repeat the question? I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
so we heard some people say it'd be good to put some of the vertical planter treatments close to Escuela. But looking at this map, it looks like they aren't on either side of Escuela. So is it possible to maybe switch some? I don't know how you chose the ones you did.
So thank you for the question. It is possible to switch. I'd like to make some trade-offs here, but I'd like to keep in mind also that we were balancing placing those planters on areas of California that were multifamily and also some that were single family. So we were intentional in placing those. So we'll go back there and look at it and see if we can do some rebalancing.
Okay, thank you. And then do we know the bike count now? And if we don't, are we going to measure that before?
I think it's appropriate to measure it before. We don't have a good bike count now, or if we do, it might have been 6 months ago, a year ago. So laying down the rubber counters now, we have some time before we're finished with design, before we get into construction. So we'll gather that information during school, during summer. We can gather some of that information during the break so that we can get that baseline data. We do have baseline pedestrian data. We asked BKF to go out there with the cameras and count jaywalking and just lots of people like using that corridor and for different reasons. Yeah. So we've all experienced that happens. That's okay. It's scary sometimes for the driver and sometimes for the pedestrian, but they make those choices. So we'll be able to get that baseline data as well for bikes.
Okay, great. And then we talked a little bit about communications, and I'm wondering if there's anything that's specific to the people who live along California, any communication that would happen outside of what everybody around you might be receiving.
I mentioned the mailers. I think that will be one of our big
That's
tools.
directly to folks on California.
When we did the mailing, we did residents and property owners. So we can certainly do it if we just want to focus on residents. We can do that, or we can continue to do it as we have. So this meeting particularly was residents and property owners.
Okay.
But I think what I'm hearing is when we're ready to start construction, before we go out there, what kind of education, communication we can give, especially for the residents of California. This is what we're doing. This is what it's going to look like. This is why we're doing it. And I will say that generally for our construction projects, we do have a protocol for informing those that are most impacted by the construction about the project, traffic detours that may happen. But one of our takeaways here is we go above and beyond that in our communication and talk a little bit more about the project itself and why the project. So I think that is something we can work on the communication platform.
Ed, just on that topic, unless you're still on that topic.
I'm still on that topic. So I do think it's important to provide more detail for the folks on California, because they're the ones that are going to need to perhaps change their habits. And so I want them to be aware of what's coming and be thinking about how they're going to do something differently.
Yeah, just it might be good to also, I don't know how much you always do this, but to also engage with the neighborhood groups and the neighborhood groups, the schools. You know, it's the Swan neighborhood, and I don't know what other neighborhood groups might be around there, but they all have newsletters and you know, any organizations that you can communicate with, not just people along California Street.
So I'm obviously supportive of the project. Those were the expanded it, not just a section of this, but the whole corridor. I am interested in hearing what the metrics are going to be. Just how are we going to know if this is successful or not, which is why I was asking about the bicycle counts now. But yeah, looking forward to this. So thanks.
So I think what you're going to hear is unanimity from the committee that they're in support of the pilot, which I shouldn't be a surprise since it went to council and was supportive. I really like the ideas that the committee members are sharing about expanding the community outreach. I do think it's going to be critical to its success. I've seen a road diet in another community go forward and then be reversed because the community. So with the type of investment the city is making, I think it's really critical. What I'd like, I know that we do the notices for the 750 radius, but I love the idea of doing the neighborhood associations. I think it would be also really important to work with our multilingual outreach program on particularly Spanish outreach. So to like the Cafecito group that's involved, particularly in this neighborhood, would be, I think, really important. There was another street where the community had come out and was voicing concerns about speed and traffic safety. And I think knowing that the city's doing something would be really critical. And then earlier, my questions were kind of teetering into comments. I apologize, but I think the city has made so many investments on trying to move in a multimodal direction that I do want to know where our VTA stops, our community shuttle stops, how these might, what's the current usage, how it might be increased as people are walking and biking to these locations to take it. And then just the confirmation on the safe route to school. I do think working with all three school districts will be very important for the outreach. And then tying that to Vision Zero. My memory is fuzzy on what the metrics were for that success, but as we're rolling that out and we're looking at the evaluation criteria that's to come in 2024, I'd like there to be synergy between those as well. So I think, and what would really be great, I'm really interested in these vertical treatments. I'd like a little chart on the speed limits, on what's used in other communities. I think as Mountain View is moving towards, like I said, multimodal options for our community, I want to know what's successful and what we can do and maybe how that can improve or enhance some of the sustainability goals that we have as a city. So, okay, all right. Oh yes, go ahead, Mary.
One last comment. I loved the adopt a planter box solution, you know, because there's a lot of residential there. So that might be one of the ways of defraying the maintenance problem at cost.
All right, do you have anything else? All right, well then I think this closes this item. Thank you, Sal. Great. Thank you to our community members. So we'll move on to item 5.2, our Grant Road and Sleeper Avenue intersection improvements, project 21-39. Staff presentation will be provided by Catherine Robertson, the Associate Civil Engineer. I'll have a little staff switch. Appreciate everyone's patience. Thank you.
You're back. Cindy, everyone.
Sarah's grabbing some water. She'll be back in just a minute. Keep saying that.
Okay. Good evening, good evening. Thank you, Chair and committee members. This item before you on the agenda tonight is a project update on the Grant Road and Sleeper Avenue intersection improvements project. My name is Catherine Robertson. I'm an associate civil engineer with the Public Works Department. Additionally, with me tonight is Robert Gonzalez, the principal civil engineer for the civil infrastructure section, and he will assist me with answering your questions at the end of the project. All right, let's get started. This image here shows that the intersection of Grant Road and Sleeper Avenue is located along Grant Road, approximately midway between North Drive and Quest Drive, indicated by the blue circle with a 1 in it. The intersection is adjacent to Cuesta Park and is an essential connection to the entrance to the Stevens Creek Trail, which is approximately 1/2 mile to the east of the intersection, seen on the far right of this image. El Camino Hospital and the YMCA are both to the west of the intersection along North Drive, located in the bottom left corner of this image. And now a little background on this project thus far. In 2018, the city issued a request for proposals for conducting a feasibility study of the Grant Road and Sleeper Avenue intersection. In 2019, the city contracted with TJKM Transportation Consultants to conduct the study and evaluate conceptual alternatives for improvements to facilitate the safe movement of pedestrians and bicyclists crossing Grant Road at Sleeper Avenue. The current conditions, as depicted in this image, show that there is only one marked crosswalk at the eastern leg of the intersection to cross Sleeper Avenue, while a median opening and accessible curb ramps are provided on the southern leg of the intersection to allow pedestrians and bicyclists to cross Grant Road. The feasibility study culminated in a preferred alternative design, which was presented to and supported by the BPAC and CTC in February and April of 2021, respectively. As part of CTC's recommendation of the preferred alternative, CTC requested that a northern bicycle crossing for westbound bicycle movements be incorporated into the final design. And in June of 2021, council approved the preferred alternative recommended by BPAC and CTC with the addition of a northern bicycle crossing. The image here shows the preferred alternative design from the study, which included a pedestrian hybrid beacon or PHB on Grant Road, high visibility crosswalks on the southern and eastern legs of the intersection, a left turn restriction from Sleeper Avenue onto Grant Road, adaptive traffic signal equipment and signal interconnect, streetlights, and enhanced signage and striping. Which leads us to today's preliminary design. BKF and staff coordinated on the northern bicycle crossing for the westbound cyclist movements, and the new preliminary design includes all the elements from the approved preferred alternative with the following additional improvements across Grant Road. A high visibility northern pedestrian crosswalk and associated ADA curb ramp. Northernly and southerly bicycle crossings, including green markings, bicycle ramps, and pathway access. Blank out signs that will be activated in conjunction with the PHB to indicate a no right turn restriction for westbound vehicles on Sleeper Avenue. A median island for improved visibility of the left turn restriction from Sleeper Avenue to Grant Road, and PHB push buttons for the cyclists. For those unfamiliar with how a blank out sign would be integrated here, let me provide a little more detail. Once the PHB is activated by pedestrians or bicyclists via a push button, the intersection will function as a full stop for all vehicles in all movements once the solid red indication turns on for the northbound and southbound of Grant Road. The activated blank out sign will illuminate in conjunction with the PHB activation, prohibiting right turning vehicles from Sleeper Avenue onto Grant Road that would conflict with the pedestrian bicyclists crossing Grant Road. Pedestrians and bicyclists will each have their own designated travel area delineated by corresponding striping on the roadway. Once the activated PHB cycle completes, the blank out sign will turn off, showing no restrictions for right turning vehicles onto Grant Road from Sleeper. With the addition of the northerly bicycle crossing for westbound bicycle movements, staff added a crosswalk as well, since it provided a more direct path across Grant Road for pedestrians on the north side of Sleeper Avenue traveling westernly, eliminating the need for pedestrians to make an additional crossing of Sleeper Avenue to access the west side of Grant Road. Overall, BPAC was very pleased to see our additional improvements to the previously approved preferred alternative. BPAC was eager to see our construction start, and they noted that these improvements may affect traffic patterns in the area and that it may also encourage more students to bicycle to school. So what are our next steps? The designer will take any feedback from CTC provided tonight and continue to develop the design in preparation for advertising the project for construction. All right, that wraps up the presentation. Thank you, Chair and committee members. Any questions? Do committee members have questions? Councilor Patrick.
Think about this last statement on page 6 of your presentation, that the BPAC said enforcement of vehicle code is an additional step after implementation. So did they say what their concern was, what needed to be enforced?
Residents, and what they heard was people were worried with how turning movements were going to be implemented. And so with the left turn restriction from Sleeper onto Grant, they are going to see a change in traffic patterns, and they're wondering how that will affect the Eunice and Grant Road intersection, especially due to the what would you call it? Pulses with school departure and change shifts at the hospital. They notice that sometimes it is very backed up. So they're worried about how this will affect future traffic movements. But currently they notice there are bad actors blocking the intersection. So if that's already an issue, the enforcement of that would be a after we implement it situation.
Okay, and Eunice has a light, right?
Eunice does have a traffic signal light, yes.
Okay, and there's backup in the intersection? At that intersection, you're saying?
I have not gone and done the study myself. Do you
Okay.
wanna?
Well, sorry, go ahead.
You know, otherwise.
Darwin, do you have?
Good evening. Darwin Galang, Senior Traffic Engineer. From the feedback we received last VPAC meeting, it was mainly the intersections being blocked by vehicles trying to get across the green light and the red light. So we received the feedback from the community to make sure that, I think it's more of an enforcement of the intersection not being blocked by vehicles. And we are looking into that issue now, if there's a need for extending green time for traffic coming off of Eunice. So the backup gets cleared with enough green time. And we can do that separately from this project.
Okay, thank you.
Can you explain to me how the flexible posts, what the purpose of them?
Okay. So
Some of them
you
maybe,
see-
but not all of them.
Okay, I think you can see my cursor. The location of the flexible posts would be along here on Sleeper Avenue.
Okay, I'm looking at the bigger ones.
So those are going to be K71s, as you can see, the little,
K71s.
the bigger
What's
ones.
the purpose? What are they stopping?
So we have a lane change. You're trying to keep them channelized in their lane versus encroaching on the left turn lane. Also, we want to provide some type of barrier or interference here because we still want to prevent the left turning movement. People can, even when you stripe it one way, people can ignore it.
That's really the big change, is that we're gonna restrict that left turn from Sleeper onto Grant. So
Oh, otherwise you might have done it by extending that, I don't know, the median, but maybe there would be other reasons you're not doing that, such as cost, and this is quicker, but it essentially does the same thing with that.
It would, so part of this is balancing cost, but also evaluating it to see if it's something, if it's working the way it's designed, then we save the money. If it didn't, then we could expand the footprint of that curved area.
Okay.
But it is channelization and then managing that left turn movement.
It allows us to put them here as well between the crossing and the bike lane to really add a barrier there. Or deterrent.
Are you afraid people will do in that little space?
They'll still drive around it.
I see. Okay.
They'll make the turn. Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be more of a median, but this is cheaper in a pilot. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
So, my question is, so and I'm trying to remember, I feel like this has been such a long journey to get to where we are tonight. So we've taken the community input already on this intersection, so we're just looking for final design so that we can go forward to finally implement the project. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
What?
I was just gonna clarify, CTC took input during the feasibility study. And provided feedback to us that we're bringing back here, and we wanted to do another round of community input during design.
Okay, all right, so design completion, council, so this would come back next year to our council agenda for final approval?
Or, yes, for approving the plan specification and advertising the project for bids.
Got it. Okay, great, thank you. All right, those are my questions. Oh, yes, go ahead. Councilmember
I do
Bencher.
have another question. On page 5 of the staff report, it talks about bicycle ramps. And where are those on this intersection? And is it
So-
different than, sorry, go ahead.
That would be, oh, sorry, it clicked.
There it is.
Here, so you have a ramp to get into the park, a direct.
So it is distinct from
Oh.
a pedestrian curb ramp where you would
Got
have
it.
there's no truncated domes, it's distinctive and it communicates different things to cyclists versus pedestrians.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, that's it now.
Thank you. All right. So we will we'll bring this to public comment. Would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or approach the lectern, and we're gonna take in-person speakers first. And so I asked you to, if you wanna queue up or stand so we can kind of keep the line flowing. We have many people virtually with their hands raised, so I wanna make sure we can get through. We'll do 3 minutes, and we will start with in-person. So if you'd like to approach the lectern.
Hi, Ken Owen from Villanueva Way. I would like to cede my time to.
We don't do it like that. Everybody gets 3 minutes. It's just a committee meeting. We're not fancy like regular council.
I'm sorry, we
That
did.
has to be worked out with the clerk in advance.
We
Yes.
did that at the meeting on Monday. And told that was the process. So I'm Cindy Newman, Cynthia Palacio again, 2430 Villanueva Way. I am in favor, as a bicyclist and pedestrian, I'm in favor of the 3 crosswalks. I think that's a great way to go. Let's see, what else do I have here? Got caught a little bit off guard. Yeah, I'm in favor of the 3 crosswalks. I'm also very much in favor of the electronic signs limiting the right turns whenever the pedestrian or bicyclist pushes it. I love that they have control of their safety. What I'm opposed to is the no left turn at any time. And I know I'm coming late to the party, but honestly, folks, this was happening during COVID. And the meetings that we had, that you guys had were in COVID. I missed it. I'm grateful that we're giving input now. So I'm opposed to left turn lanes because I think it's going to have unintended consequences. Because you're not going to be able to make a left turn, so you're not going to be able to go to the YMCA or the hospital. You have to do a U-turn at Cuesta Drive, which is going to increase traffic flow and increase turning movements. Where after you make that U-turn, you're coming into conflict with people leaving St. Tim's Church to driveways. And St. Tim's is not just there on Sunday. There's activities going on all the time. In addition, the northbound Grant Road, right before the Cuesta Drive intersection, is also a crosswalk and has a queue. And on our way here tonight, that queue was backed up all the way onto the travel lane. So you're going to, by making it right turn only, you're going to increase the traffic flow around that median. And people that have problems in the middle of the night need to get to the ER room, and it's not going to, the ambulance is going to take too long to get to you. You're going to have to go out, right turn, do a U-turn on Cuesta, or you have to go circuitously through Carroll to Eunice, travel over speed bumps, and every minute counts. What else do I have here? Running out of time. So we need, my concern is that there are only 2 exits to Grant for this neighborhood of about 600 homes. In Dutch Haven alone, where I live, Villanueva Way, there's 122 homes. If traffic is forced to make left turn by going down Carroll onto Eunice, we can't get out of our neighborhood. Smoke events are all too real now with wildfires. We voluntarily evacuate to get into fresher air, or maybe we have to do a mandatory evacuation. I'm also CERT certified. I'm concerned about being able to get out with only 2 exits. We can't get out through Martin's, or whatever it's called there, Martin's. We can't get out through Levin. It's too circuitous. We have to travel miles to get to Levin. April Lane has an example, April and Grant has an example of a flattened concrete median. I object to the concrete median and the stop sign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're here to speak, please stand up. Please don't wait for other people. Please just come on up.
I'm Ted Nakashima. I live on the first block of Sleeper Avenue from Grant Road. I've been there for decades. We welcome Stevens Creek Trail, although it increased the traffic in front of our house. What I object to is the permanent left turn thing. When it's busy, we go down to Eunice. Use the traffic signal at Eunice and Grant to make the left turn. Weekends and other times of day, I do not see a need for times of the week, a permanent no left turn on Sleeper. Does not make any sense to me at all. With the northbound pedestrian walkway, that'll increase the number of people trying to make a cross Grant Road on the south side where the left turn effect will be affected. So my big objection, other than that, and is a permanent no left turn post and barrier. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Preman Jayek. I live on Sleeper Avenue. I've been at a few of these meetings in the past 10, 14 years, concerned about safety of pedestrians as I walked my small children at the time across Grant Road to the park. So I am opposed to the left turn restriction. I'm concerned that it's going to cause further backup on Sleeper as people have to track around during school times to go down Carroll to get to Eunice. And I want to remind you that Carroll is a safe route to school. It is the back entrance to my elementary school. I'm also concerned about whether traffic analysis has been done. About 11 years ago, I witnessed a traffic analysis. It was on Labor Day Monday at 9 a.m. and I asked the person sitting at the corner what they were doing, and they said they were actually conducting the traffic study. And I commented that that was the worst time to be doing it because obviously it's not reflective of the true traffic patterns in the neighborhood. So those are my concerns that I just wanted to bring to your attention about this plan. So I hope those considerations. I feel that a lot of the changes have been, I believe in bicycle safety, and I'd like to see a lot of changes made to make things improve for bicyclists. But when we were asking for these changes for pedestrians over the last 15 years, it seems like those projects have been stalled, and we ended up with a faux kind of crosswalk right now in Sleeper and Grant. And what's pushing a lot of this faster is the need to incorporate biking safety. And I'd like to see bicycle and pedestrian safety considered in balance. Thank you.
Hi, I'm April Webster. This is a relatively simple intersection. I've biked along here. I biked along Foothill and down through Cuesta. I need to get to Stevens Creek to get back home. I live on Central Avenue. And I used to bike down there until someone from the community pointed out a back road to me so I could avoid that particular intersection because it is really hairy. I've biked in other hairy places when you have to cross over 4 lanes of traffic and play Frogger to get across to a left lane to turn. It is you worry and think twice about crossing there. So I'm thrilled to see, there are a number of things I'm thrilled to see. The additional crosswalks, the no right turn on red I'd love to see that actually more throughout the city because it really protects pedestrians. We've seen this time and again, we saw this on El Camino Real, and other intersections. People aren't paying attention. They're busy lives, are in a hurry, and we want to design to have people do the best thing that they can to prevent. No one wants to hit someone in a crosswalk, and so the more that we can do to design to make that harder is great. I really like that the push button, it shuts down all lanes of traffic. So people, it's not quite a scramble, but everyone can cross in all directions. So it's a really large safe space for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross. And one other comment is this has been going on since 2010. I know it's been a number of different councils, a number of different staff members, and this is just the history of it. But it's been going on and we're looking to have it implemented, I think in 2025. That's a long time for a project to be ongoing. And so I know it's become back and it is almost like this, I don't want to say desperate, but a number of rounds of design. So it would be nice to see something move forward if something's good enough. I know there are concerns about that left turn, but if we could somehow avoid, if there are changes being made, have it go through that entire loop again through BPAC or outreach BPAC, it just takes such a long time to see something happen and people start to get discouraged. And it can erode trust as well. So whatever you can do to speed it up would be wonderful. I know you're dealing with what you're dealing with, but We would love to see things implemented quickly. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Marcy Marcus. I live at 100 Sleeper Avenue, right on the corner. I'm not as articulate of a speaker as some of the other people have spoken tonight, so I'm going to do my best. I do have some serious concerns about the no left turn as well as Ms. Newman. And I echo much of what she said about having the traffic patterns get far worse than they already are. I can tell you at peak traffic times, just getting out of my house is impossible because the line of cars just backs up so much. It's not just the elementary school and the hospital. We have another high school, public high school on one side and a private high school behind the hospital on the other side. So I think putting in a permanent no left turn is going to be atrocious for the traffic that's already bad, and it's going to make it worse. And while I understand people have concerns about pedestrians and bicyclists, but people still have to drive to get to and from their houses to work. You have to also consider the drivers. And I'm not trying to belittle the pedestrians at all, but I can tell you, I have, as I mentioned last week, I have 2 small children, ages 7 and 10. You guys did a lot of this planning during COVID. I agree with Cindy. We were not really aware of what was going on because we were dealing with so many other things with school closures. So I would really appreciate if you would consider our comments now with regards to putting this permanent no left turn in. I think if you do that and then couple that with no right turn anytime somebody is going into any part of this intersection, it's really going to cause a logjam. There was something else I was going to say. I'm sorry. I'm just tired. I have 2 little children, and I can tell you we've been there now for over 4 years. And I don't understand why people can't take another 2 seconds to go less than a quarter mile, either right or left, to the designated crosswalks where there are traffic lights to cross. I get that there should be a highlighted crosswalk in case somebody does decide to make that decision, but we've been taking our children to the lights with no problem. It takes maybe 5 more minutes to walk. And I think if you're on a bicycle, it's going to take even less time. So I think just shutting down this whole intersection and causing more traffic is really, putting the welfare of a few over to the, over the detriment of the people living in the neighborhood. And my concern also is how many pedestrians and bicyclists cross there? Has there even been a study? Do we even know how many people cross there versus going to Cuesta Drive or to Eunice to cross? I mean, that's another thing that I wanted to know what the committee looked at to make this decision. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I just I had so much to say in so little time.
My name is Emil Abraham. Thank you very much to the engineers and BPAC for all the feedback. So this design is very cool as it is. It's amazing. So I take Stevens Creek Trail every day to get to the YMCA from the north, so southbound. And I completely avoid this intersection because it is absolutely horrible or close to impossible to cross on bike because of the high speed of the cars coming down Grant. So these changes are absolutely amazing. And connecting bike routes like this to like Stevens Creek to like a park is a great way to get people to adopt riding their bikes. I really enjoy the PED and bike activated lights to control the traffic on Grant. I think that's a great idea. I hear all the concerns about the no left turn. So I hope that we can all come to like a compromise and keep all these great bike and PED changes while maybe keeping that left turn. But I think the most important thing is that we implement this as soon as we can. So as they say, perfection is the enemy of progress. So this project has been delayed for a really long time. So anything to speed this up would be amazing. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Deepti. I'm also, I live on Sleeper Avenue. And I just wanted to echo the concern of the no left turn. The traffic on Sleeper Avenue gets really bad during school times. In fact, I have a 5-year-old son who has, asthma frequently, and in fact, just 2 weeks ago, we had to take him to the ER at the El Camino Hospital. And, I can't imagine if, let's say, the traffic is backed up and I have to take a U-turn and go there, just like you said, every minute counts. So I just wanted to echo that, this is a concern for me as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to virtual unless, okay.
One more. Ken Owen, 2430 Villanueva Way. First, yeah, the comments about the notice. I don't know if there was mailings for this project or not. It seems like the Dutch Haven or Villanueva neighborhood should have received the mailings if there were mailings. Would have been here probably sooner. As far as the left-hand turn, I think possibly just time restrictions would help. That the backup there starts about 3:30 when the shift change happens at El Camino Hospital, plus the schools, all of that let out. St. Francis comes out, through South Drive as well as Monte Vista High School. So there's a lot of traffic. And what happens on Eunice is it's gridlock coming out of the cars don't stop when they're coming out of the hospital, turn to go north on Grant. And they block the intersection, so you can't get out from Eunice either. So maybe time restrictions on the no left turn for the morning, noon, and mid up 3 to 5 kind of thing. I think might be better. Plus, I don't know if you've seen the yellow post in some of these cities now where they've been there for a while. They're beat up, they're ugly. I think the new turn restriction, just certain times of day would be much better than all the posts.
Thank you. Okay, last call. All right, so we're gonna move on to virtual. Mary Dadio.
Oh, good evening. I was really excited to see the latest version of this design that includes that north side crossing, because some of the early designs did not have that. And I just think this is so much better for pedestrians and bicyclists, not to have to always sort of walk around, most of the way around an intersection in order to do a crossing. I think this is just going to be so much safer, and I'm really excited about the addition of the light. Whenever I'm a pedestrian or cyclist and I'm crossing and there's not a light, it actually sometimes makes me nervous to see the car stopping for me, because I'm always afraid the first car is going to get rear-ended by the second one. So I think this light's going to make it a lot safer, not just for the pedestrians, but also for the drivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Celia Paymer.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm Celia Paymer. I'm a resident in the adjacent Cuesta Park neighborhood that also uses this intersection. And sort of from our perspective, it's a lot of people and a lot of kids and a lot of people of all ages that are traveling between the park and the Stevens Creek Trail. When I went to the Parks and Rec strategic plan meetings, at every single meeting I went to, people brought up that one of the things they want is an interconnected park system. And so this is something that's going to be coming up soon in that strategy. I'm pretty confident, considering how many times I heard about it. And so this would be added probably to that route. So not only would it be a consideration for safe routes to school, but also safe routes to parks. In terms of the safe routes to school, yes, it is not currently on either the Graham or the Mountain View High School safe route to school. And that's because it's not safe. We can't put it on the map if it's not safe. And so right now there's not probably a tenth of the users as there could be, because it's not safe. So people aren't going to go there. until these changes are made. In terms of the left turn, this was actually a design because of traffic concerns. The reason the left turn was eliminated was to allow for a left turn with no conflicts with pedestrians. It would have needed its own light cycle coming out from Sleeper, which would have needed a full light that had light cycles for pedestrians as well as left turns coming out of Sleeper. And that there was a concern that would impact the traffic on Grant and back it up more. So this was actually the solution to the traffic concerns. If anything, it will probably speed up some of the backup on Sleeper, as you won't be stuck behind someone trying to make a left turn. Everyone will just be turning right. And it might actually smooth out some of that. And so I'm really excited for this in terms of for my kids. It is technically a crosswalk already, according to California law. And so putting it in a visual way that's protected, I think is going to benefit a lot of residents. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bruce England.
Thank you. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive. I support a number of the comments that have been made so far. There was a letter drafted by Celia Paymer for Green Spaces Mountain View. If that went through and you're able to see it, great. I support that letter. Want to support the idea of limiting any delays on this because the project's been in process for a very long time. It'd be great to just get it done ultimately. That said, having no right turn on red from Grant to Sleeper would be wonderful. And those kind of no right turn on red infrastructures throughout town, we'd like to see them more and more. Apparently there are only 2 right now in Mountain View. More of those would be great. And at this location would be great. And just also lastly, to support whatever we need to improve our bike ped safety infrastructure, that needs to be paramount. I get the points about the no left turns and things like that, but we need to support active transportation in Mountain View for a variety of reasons, and would like to see that put front and center. And also on Celia's point about we need safety in key locations in order to provide a safe routes to school infrastructure from as many locations as possible to and from the schools for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Dwani Shah.
Hello. Hi, this is Priyanka and Dwani Shah. We live off of Sleeper as well. And I'm really happy to see these changes coming in, especially excited about the activated crossing. Because the Grant is both sides is 2-lane road. I've noticed a lot of people, including ourselves, when we cross the road, the first car stops for us, looking at the pedestrian, but the car in the second lane has no idea. And that keeps, rushing through. And there's a lot of quote unquote peer pressure to start walking because there's a car waiting, but that's extremely dangerous. I know that's part of the plan. My comment and request to this team is, while you hash out the feedback and the details and the process, if there's a way to, put a visual pedestrian sign and a lighted illumination earlier, then I think that would benefit a lot and make it a lot safer. We do see a lot of pedestrian traffic right there, which is, with the high speeds on Grant is really risky. So I echo a lot of people who've said stuff before me that, perfection is not, the goal, but, a good design is great too. So if something can be done earlier, that would be my request to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Kundu.
Hi, this is Megan Kundu. I am also a resident in this neighborhood in one of the streets just off of Sleeper. Thank you for this. It's long overdue. I share the comments of many other community members that we would love to support you in going faster with this, including, in baby steps, if that's what it takes to make things safer. Something that I want to point out that I haven't heard discussed already if we really want to make commuting to and from the park and Stevens Creek Trail safer for pedestrians and bicyclists, that entire route, you will be supporting people getting from the park, but there are no sidewalks and there are no bike lanes on Sleeper. And it will still not be a safe route to school for EMI or for Mountain View High School because it lacks those things. So this will make it easier, which is fabulous, to cross Grant because that's very dangerous right now. But it will still be a very dangerous route to school and a dangerous pedestrian and bike route generally, because once you are into the Sleeper neighborhood, it is not a safe place to bike. If you want to do a traffic study there, please come and do it during the school commute time, where you can see that because kids are biking in the middle of the street, cars are weaving in and out between them down the middle of the street. So we won't be solving that. And I would love for you to sort of take that into account as the phase 2 in making this a safer community for biking and walking. And to also encourage you to think about taking some of these great steps and carrying them over onto Cuesta, where we also have very long sidewalks to get from the park to the neighborhood opposite Cuesta that don't have any lights or attention grabbing signals. And if you drive there, you will see that people are often missing that pedestrians are wanting to cross. And it would be great to take some of these same ideas and carry them over so that all routes through that park are safer. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Vance Wagner.
Yes, hi, thanks for holding this meeting. My name is Vance Wagner. I live on Grant Road in the 1600 block, so a little bit north of this project. But I have 2 kids. We're constantly biking and walking all around this neighborhood. I go to St. Tim's Church. We're very familiar with this intersection. So I just wanted to make 3 points. Number 1, I strongly support the city's efforts to proactively improve the safety of intersections like this. And so I just want to express my gratitude. We've benefited from a lot of the bicycle infrastructure that has been improved over the last few years in Mountain View. So thank you for that. And I like that you're taking a hard look at this particular intersection, which is a terrifying place to cross Grant. I mean, all places to cross Grant are terrifying, but especially this one. My point number 2 is, that being said, I am concerned about the no left turn restriction. And I speak as someone who never turns left from Sleeper onto Grant. So this is not something out of, my own self-interest. But we cross Grant at Cuesta very regularly. And that intersection is horrible. And I'm worried one of the other speakers spoke about the potential unintended consequences of eliminating the left turn from Sleeper. And one of those that I'm worried about is more cars who are frustrated and in a rush trying to make a U-turn, at that Grant Cuesta intersection, and that's going to make Grant Cuesta even more dangerous. And that intersection is already pretty horrible. Not to mention the potential problems on Eunice and along Sleeper and Carroll and all that area where, there's no bike infrastructure and kids really just are out in the streets. I just feel like this problem can be solved without that step of eliminating the left turn onto Grant. And I would encourage the committee to look at a solution that moves quickly, but preserves that left turn. My final point is that I really think one of the solutions which hasn't been discussed is just general traffic calming on Grant. Because one of our biggest issues is that cars, as they're going north on Grant, they pass Sleeper, and then it's like a free for all the way to Martin's, and they just accelerate. They accelerate through Cuesta and right around. It's kind of like a blind curve in front of the rehabilitation center. But if you had some traffic calming measures, which were sort of slowing cars through Sleeper and through Cuesta, I think that's going to do a lot more for pedestrian safety than blocking off the left turn there. But again, thank you. And look forward to seeing what happens.
Thank you. Kirti?
Yeah, hi everyone. Really appreciate that we all are thinking in this direction. I live at 101 Sleeper Avenue. So very close to what is being discussed. I can see it right away from my window. I have two kids, 7 and 10, and so we also love going to Cuesta Park. In fact, my older parents, we all commute all the time there, and I feel the pain for pedestrian. Not sure how many bikers cross it though. But what is really what I'm really opposing here, while I support all the pedestrian effort around it, I think no left turn would create a bigger mess here, because already around the peak hours, like I hear all the time, even honking around, and it's a nightmare, to live next to it. Specifically, a lot of times, even the ambulances are stuck. So think about it, like, around like hour and a half, 2 at least in morning, again in noon and again in evening. Those are the times when anyways, the intersection around Sleeper and Grant Road, in fact, it goes all the way till El Camino on other side beyond Cuesta. So this entire like 1.5 mile stretch is jam packed, and it's impossible for us to even get out of our home in the mornings, even to walk kids without, crossing multiple cars. And it's already painful. So I can't imagine, how worse it would get if there is a no left turn. Probably entire Sleeper would be blocked all the way till beyond Carroll and far beyond. So it will also impact the pedestrian kids who are going to school crossing Carroll in the morning to Imai. So I would really suggest that like we should consider it again, that while pedestrian walk is a great idea, yes, electronic signs, all that, like mentioning that the flashing lights, everything is great, it's saving a lot of lives. I've seen very few bikers while there are like thousands of cars every day on those roads. So that's what I'll suggest. Like, if you have not done enough study, please come and see, or maybe live in my home for a few days, and you'll know it's nightmare. I'm already living on the road and hearing ambulances all the time stuck in the traffic. I hope we are caring for those lives as well. That's it. Thank you again for all the effort. And I would strongly recommend that we do another study on how much traffic we build up already without a left turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Molly Carlson.
Hi, I'm a resident of Woodleaf Way, which is a block off of Grant on Sleeper. And I use this intersection multiple times every week, mostly walking, but sometimes biking. And I would like to thank you for addressing this situation, because it is not a safe situation. We often have to run to get across that intersection. And I favor adding the crosswalks and the signals, as I think that will make it safer and let the cars know not to move. I am concerned with the left turn restrictions. I think it will impact traffic. And I also feel like there's a lot of stuff going on in the designs with barriers and posts and lights, and maybe not all of that is necessary, because if the lights are flashing at the crosswalk, then the cars are not allowed to go. I think the blackout sign is interesting. I haven't seen that before, and I'm wondering if there could be a blackout sign for the restricting the left turn when there are pedestrians in the crosswalk. And so those are my comments now, but I do also encourage this to move on, because we've been asking for it when my children were early grade school, and they now were almost 30. So it's been a while, but it is important, and thank you.
Great, thank you. Ling W.
Hi, my name is Ling, and I'm also a resident in the neighborhood off of Sleeper. I bike with my kids around the neighborhood all the time, and we do actually use that intersection and cross that intersection on a daily basis. I think maybe I'm like one of the only parents that let my kids cross that. But the biggest safety issue crossing that, though, is always, for me, the first lane of traffic will see you, but then the second lane rarely does see the pedestrian or the bike cyclist, right, in one way. And so I've trained my kids to basically always wait for both lanes to stop for you before you cross even onto that, what did you call it, pedestrian refuge island, and then move forward. So it's great that we're having those user activated pedestrian signals and having those crosswalks lined. And I saw that design was in this the initial preferred alternative route. But then it seemed like there were a bunch of extras that came in through that second design phase. And one of them seemed to be the no left turn with all the extra posts and whatnot that seemed very busy. And I would just question, again, the traffic study of having that no left turn, right, during high traffic times, okay? And also, what is the cost trade-off with each of these elements, right? I think we can all agree that we need that user-activated signal to get all traffic to stop. But then what about all these extras? Like, do we really need that extra bike lane along with the pedestrian crosswalk? I mean, a bike that's crossing that intersection is going to press the 6, they're going to stop no matter what, just like pedestrians, right? So that's my concern, is with all of the extras, does it really make sense? Is there a cost Pareto? What additional traffic that's going to cause all along the neighborhood, whether that is further up Grant, folks making U-turns, blocking exits and whatnot. So that would be my feedback.
Thank you. Kamal Naran.
Hi there.
Hello.
Sorry for the wait. Thank you so much for letting us speak. Really appreciate all the effort everybody's been putting into putting this design together. I know that everyone's working towards the goal of pedestrian and bike safety, and we appreciate all those efforts. I feel like perhaps we're doing too much. It seems to me that having a bike and pedestrian lit walkway would address the majority of the concerns. Going as far as making no left turn, I think everyone's on the same page. I think everyone is in agreement that the light up pedestrian and bike crossing is a benefit. And everything going beyond that, I think, is where it starts to get a bit controversial. So I would say let's go forward with the part of the plan that everyone's in agreement with and address the other parts as needed over time. It's been in the works for quite some time. I feel like you've got a solid piece of the plan to move forward with. That's the plan that should move most quickly. On a personal note, I've been in a situation living in the Sleeper neighborhood where we've needed to take our son to the emergency room at a moment's notice, and not being able to make a left turn from Sleeper onto Grant would have cost us valuable time. So I don't see any benefit to doing that. I can see where it would cause harm to, or it could be harmful to individuals, and it definitely, at the very least, inconvenient. Pedestrian safety, bike safety is of course a paramount concern, and I believe that the light up crosswalk would address that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our in-person and virtual public comment. So I'm going to bring this item back for committee comments and feedback to staff. So again, no formal motion is required. Staff's looking for consensus on a proposed design or perhaps some feedback.
I have.
Okay, Meredith, go ahead.
So I have a question from all the comments. We're hearing a couple of things about no left turn on Sleeper. Can you give us the history of that decision? Because many people have been saying don't prohibit it all the time. Other people are saying that that decision to not, that it was considered somewhere earlier in this 15-year history, and that that was considered cumbersome as well. So information on that?
So Doreen, can you come sit here? That way your voice will project out for the audience as well. And I pulled up also the report from when we went to CTC the last time and gave more data about the left turn and when the decision was made.
Right, so as part of the study, we did look at the counts for the left turn. The main reason we removed the left turn is for the conflict for the new pedestrian crosswalk, or for the pedestrian crosswalk, the southern leg of the intersection. And when we look at the counts showed us that at peak hours, there's only 3 left turn movement from Sleeper onto Grant. That gave us the confidence to, think about ways to eliminate that conflict from the left turn with the pedestrian. And that is also the reason why when we brought it to BPAC and to council, the left turn restriction is temporary only. It's going to be tested after 6 months or a year. As we get the feedback from the community, and we get more counts. If it's needed, we can take it out again, allow left turn again, or if the community loves it, we can make it more permanent.
So thank you. And that's exactly what was in the April 2021 report to CTC, was the results of the left turn counts, which were showing to be 2 to 3 per peak hour. And the reason, as you were bringing up earlier, that instead of extending the median and so on, it is more the channelizers being used because they're temporary. So we came here as well as council, we did present it as a pilot and to observe how conditions go with restricting the left turn lanes. The conflict for the left turn lanes into the southern leg of the pedestrian bike travel is a real concern. And should it be decided to maintain the left turn lanes or do the pilot and then put it back, we would also need to look at upgrading the signal system out there, potentially going to a full signal. Because while the blank out signs could be very effective for right turn, I would be concerned about using for left turn. They're too easy to ignore. And I know it's been suggested time restrictions for the left turns. That becomes an enforcement issue because you haven't done anything physically to block those left turns. So they will continue to try to do left turns unless we have police out there to make sure it's enforced that during these periods, there would be no left turns. So the time restricted left turns is not something staff would recommend.
And you also mentioned, or I think one of the speakers mentioned some problems with full signalization. I don't know if I'm remembering that right.
We also looked at full signalization as part of the alternatives during the study. One main drawback is the cost. It's additional, I believe 500,000. And even with that, you would still have that conflict with the left turn. Because when you have a full signal, you still have that crosswalk, the southern leg, and allow left turn while they're crossing. Unless you have a full pedestrian face signal, which would cause delay, where only pedestrians and bicyclists could get the movement without any vehicle getting their green lights.
And the key difference is the traffic signal cycles through, so it could affect your traffic along Grant a lot more, whereas the push button pedestrian activated signals, you're really only bringing all traffic to stop when there's bikes and pets needing to cross. So you're not just doing that for every single car that's trying to enter onto Grant, activating a signal that's bringing Grant.
I'm comfortable with doing that as a pilot, but I would like to see what.
Councilmember Matiak.
Yeah, so when we did the counts that you referenced, when were those done?
Those were done in April 2019.
April 2019, okay. And was it done over multiple days?
We typically take a full week of counts.
Okay. And if this is implemented as a pilot, and we're looking at what changes in terms of traffic patterns, where would we look at that? Like how far away from that intersection would we look to see what the impact might be?
I think we could look at the whole area, including Eunice, because that's where all the movement would go if we were restricting left turn from Sleeper into Grant. A lot of the spillover would be go into the next street would be Eunice or Levin, even south of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm finding this one a little bit puzzling, frustrating, all kinds of things, because we have been talking about this for quite some time. And there are some residents who live on Sleeper, very close to that, who regularly contact us to say, when are you going to implement this? They're frustrated about the delays. And yet, and I feel like all the times we've discussed this, we haven't heard much opposition to the no left turn lane. So this is kind of a surprise tonight. And I kind of feel like, well, why is it that some people heard about these meetings and spoke up, and others are saying they didn't really hear about these meetings? You know, that's always a frustrating thing to hear because you think you do a great job of communicating, and then people are saying they haven't heard. So I guess I'm kind of leaning toward going forward, since it is a pilot, but making sure we're really looking at the broader area in terms of the impact on traffic patterns. And also doing counts on bicyclists and pedestrians. Are they using it more than they are using it now? So we'd have to be measuring it now and later.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, I think I want to talk about the positive things, which is I want to, we heard at our last CTC meeting that people wanted all 3 crosswalks. I thought that they gave quite clear feedback, that's what they wanted. So I'm excited that we're seeing that. I think I also know that we are managing the cost, but also I would say to the community, like the full impact on the community if we go full signalization. So I think that I maybe letting people know if they don't want the no left turn lane to move to full signalization, what that might mean for the community and the traffic, right? And having spent the majority of my childhood in this part of Mountain View growing up, it has only gotten more and more and more congested as I've lived here. And I think that one of the public speakers gave great comments in terms of what are we doing overall on Grant? And I think that that was a great point, but we're looking at Sleeper as a direct feedback from the community. The community asked for this, and so we're looking at it. And we want to be responsive to the community because people did not feel safe walking, cycling in this area. So we are trying to be responsive in the best way that we can, given the information available. So I feel that I wouldn't want to move forward with something that would further bring conflict for a pedestrian or a cyclist. That if we have the left lane and someone was hit in that intersection and we made that decision, that would be on council and the city. And it makes me extremely uncomfortable to say that we are not prioritizing the lives of our residents. So I think maybe in the conversation and how we title it is, Grant Road Sleeper Avenue pilot intersection, so that people know that we are truly trying to be receptive to the feedback we've been getting the last 2 decades, that we're trying something out, and that I would say anything is a better improvement than what we have currently. But I do think the signalization point that came up multiple times whether it be, Martin's, Cuesta, Eunice, Bryant, I mean, all of those are congested. It, in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, and I was trying to remember what the mile per hour is on Grant. Is it 35?
35.
Yeah. So I also think people don't go 35 on Grant. And if you get hit at 40 miles an hour, that's a fatality. So I just feel like, those are other considerations that I feel like the committee, that council is weighing, and maybe we need to share that. And but I do want to move forward tonight. I don't want to further hold up moving forward. So I feel hesitant given the feedback we've gotten from the community tonight. But as we've weighed the different alternatives, I feel like the only other thing that would keep the left lane to what I'm hearing from staff would be full signalization or doing nothing. I mean, those are the two options.
We can, if CTC would recommend removing the left turn, we can take a look at that. But then again, we're looking at additional time into designing the project. If we need to actually evaluate that again, because that was not evaluated as part of this final alternative.
If I may.
Yeah.
Ed Arango again, Assistant Works Director and City Engineer. So as Darwin mentioned, it's something that staff can evaluate. But it's a change from what staff took to, sorry, let me switch so that way. I'll get yelled at for not predicting. So this is a change from what staff took to the community, to the BPAC, to the CTC and council. So we would need to start that process over, and would delay the project. And that's something that we're hearing consistently from the community, that move as fast as you can, make this project happen. So it is a pilot. Consider that, and we're trying to put improvements in that allow them to be removed in the future if we value. But we're going to switch and please recommend to provide staff with look at removing that left turn restriction. Then we would have to start over to make sure that we evaluate it through all the committees and the council.
Maybe we can help provide the timeline for the pilot. So when it would get constructed, I know we haven't talked about that yet, but maybe we can share that with the community so that they're well aware, and think as things move forward, making sure that everyone's part of the process. And so kind of similar to my comments for the prior item, going beyond the 750-foot radius and just noticing the entire community. As Councilmember Matashek said, the most frustrating part is when we hear that somebody wasn't notified. So I think
I have a question. So if we go forward with this and we see that there are consequences that maybe we didn't expect or we're not really happy about, and we want to change things, how does that work? Do we then do a study on how to change things, and that takes a while? Or do we just immediately turn off the no left turn lane? How does that work?
I love it when they look at me. You do it. So obviously, if as a result of evaluating the pilot, it is determined that it would be advisable to return allowing the left turn lanes as part of that, we would have to look at what additional improvements we want to put in there to basically protect the pedestrians crossing that southern lane. So it may be accompanied by something of let's convert to a full signal or something else. But we would not take the number of years it's taken to get to where we're at. It would be a more focused study on what we would have to change in addition to allowing left turn lanes again.
And do we leave the pilot in place until we've determined, we've studied that? And how long would that take roughly to study it?
Well, it always does depend upon a combination of having staffing, a project manager available to take it on, as well as budget. This being a more focused study shouldn't take that long to actually complete the study. It should just be a few months, right?
Correct.
And which would be enough to evaluate and come up with alternate set of improvements. But again, if it does mean something as converting to a full signal, we will have to go through a full design process and then of course, public works contract and bid it out and all those pieces. So it would take a little while. It would take a little while to put it. Okay.
Thank you. So I think that, again, no formal motion is required from the committee. I think that you're hearing feedback from us on outreach timeline of the pilot, the opportunity to shift if the pilot is not what the community wants. But I am hearing going forward that the committee will recommend it going forward.
Okay, and if I could summarize, just thank you, Chair, for summarizing, but what I am hearing is similar to what we talked about California Street. It might be nice to do another set of pre-project counts, vehicle, bike, ped, which will give us a baseline also to compare with once the project is implemented, doing an evaluation of how it is affecting traffic, including the broader area, looking at Eunice, looking at Cuesta, and looking at what's happening along Sleeper as well as along Grant. So a general evaluation on traffic, but also evaluating how this is affecting bikes and peds. Are we seeing an increase crossing there, bikes and peds? What are, in general, and then increase noticing both before we put in the project and as part of the evaluation phase.
Yes, I think you're getting nodding heads.
Good summary.
All right. Thank you, staff. All right, we'll move on to item 6, which is committee staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports. We'll move on to item 6.1, which is staff comments. John Cameron, Public Works Director, will provide some staff comments.
Thank you very much. And we did put on the agenda that there are 2 specific items that I wanted to provide you comments on. The first one is a general update on the Castle Street or Transit Center Bridge Separation Project. And at your last meeting, I believe it was, we gave you a more detailed status report on the project, brought various elements forward to you. And this is, as I know you're aware, is a very large scale, very significant infrastructure project that's starting to move along very, very quickly. Because we're finished 65% design, we're getting ready to move into final design, looking forward to construction starting maybe as early as next summer or fall. And so one of our plans is pretty much at every meeting, you'll either have a formal agenda item on it or you'll receive an update on status. Now, this being an updated status means we're not really going to be discussing it because it wasn't agendized that way. But it's to give you a heads up on what's going on and if you do have questions and so on, again, we have to avoid overly engagement discussion because we just put it down as an update. But Laura, could you share, to make it a little simpler, we did put together a couple of slides. Next slide. So just so you know where we're at, when we came to you last spring, we were talking about, we were in 65% design. And as you will recall, Caltrain is the lead on final design and construction of this project. VTA is very involved because they're providing Measure B funding, which is the bulk of the funding to deliver the project. So and they're providing overall oversight of the entire grade separation program, all the ones funded by Measure B. But the city is the sponsor, a key local partner, and ultimately, the city is the decision maker in terms of, the general design of it. It's how it looks and feels, that type of thing. So the team is getting ready to proceed into 95% design. Some good news for us recently is the project was awarded a $25 million California SB1 Local Partnership Program grant, which does a great job in helping to fill our funding gap for the construction. And we're trying to be on target that construction could start as early as noted here next August. It will take a good 2.5 years to get through construction. I want to kind of highlight for you, though, that number one, there are still some utility relocations that need to take place, and they've been a little bit stalled out. And unfortunately, that could delay the start of this construction. We're looking at that. We're working on it, see what we could do. The other piece is we're starting to get in some preliminary estimates on costs again. Every time you go through another design phase, they relook at it. And the costs are coming in higher. And we're looking and exploring with the design team of what the options are that could get the cost back into the budget or as close as possible to it. It is premature. I really cannot give you numbers because we're still in the vetting stage and we're looking at the options, because we do believe there may be options that can at least get the cost back down. But I point this out because one of the things that's affecting the cost is the construction time. And the longer it takes to construct, the more expensive it is. So one of the things that we're looking at that we'd be bringing forward to you and eventually council is if we do more construction of phases all at once instead of doing separate phases and shorten the construction window, we bring the cost back down. But we're balancing that with the community impacts of how much you're constructing at the same time in different areas, including the ramp from Evelyn up to Shoreline, how this is affecting the businesses right there on the 100 block, the other side on Moffett. So we're exploring what those options look like, and so that we can bring forward, these are the trade-offs involved, in terms of higher costs versus lower costs, but these kind of community impacts during construction. The other we're really focused on is construction method of the tunnel. There are so many different ways you can do this tunnel. And one of our concerns is the method that started to be really advocated for by Caltrain may be a more expensive method. So we are talking to them about, can we do it in a different way? So we need a little more time to finish working this through, but I am giving a heads up that, all delays and all of this can sometimes lead to higher costs, and we're trying to work on that. And then we are coming back to you, I'll get to that in the next slide, but again, these are all the things we're also considering about construction. Where are the work zones? Where are the staging areas? How to handle temporary detours. Next slide. Some other news about how this is progressing is been actively working on the artists and the public art selection process with the Visual Arts Committee. Has been following the usual process we do for all capital improvement programs, and wanted to share with you that the committee in July, after going through a very robust selection process, including one where there were finalists who were paid a small stipend to further develop the concepts so the Visual Arts Committee would have more to look at and work with. So you can go back and look at their meeting packet for more information. These graphics do come out of their meeting packets. The artists that they've selected, and looking at two basically two major art installations. One would be up on the upper concourse area up against the, where you enter into the rail platform areas, which could be more of a vertical sculpture element. I understand the theme is more around home on it. And the other would be kind of mural wall treatments for the main concourse area that leads into a treatment on the grand staircase. And the theme that's being looked at here again is a combination of what is Mountain View home, what is being contemplated is like a map of Mountain View that would be on the staircase. This is still undergoing a lot of development. It will eventually, of course, come to council for approval. But if you're interested, I do suggest that you go ahead and check out one of the past Visual Arts Committee, so you have more of a sense of what's being discussed and being developed for recommendation to council.
Sorry, so that what's on the step is a map of Mountain View?
Yes, that's correct. That is how the artist presented the imaging. The mapping would be on the stairs and then also the backing in the tunnel itself. So the proposal, the city's prompt was to propose something for the main tunnel underneath the Caltrain tracks. And so that was the response. The images on the bottom right would be in the tunnel.
Black?
The artist is open to suggestions.
Okay. It looks so dark.
We can give that as feedback. We appreciate that. And any feedback is more than welcome.
But I want to say, we did not notice the meeting for this purpose, so this was more to give you an update.
But this comes to council. When does it come to council?
It will come to council, December is what we're thinking.
Yeah, that's December.
That's our plan.
2024, yeah. It needs to be decided early enough, again, as you know, because it gets integrated into the design and the construction. Can we have the next slide?
Yeah, and I should just say, I've seen a lot of this person, the artist who was picked, I've seen a lot of her work. And if you're interested in like saying more about it, I would encourage you to look at like the entirety of her work. I know some people on the Visual Arts Committee.
So we are on the agenda for your next meeting of November 28th that will be bringing an actual agenda item forward. And I want to give you a heads up of what you can expect on that. We are going to bring forward more information about the architectural treatments that are being developed. They are, the goal is to make sure they're complementary to the public art so that you get a really good, integrated, seamless approach to the look and feel and the visual experience for the whole project. So we're going to bring that forward so you can see the rest of the architectural treatments that are being proposed. Definitely talk a lot more about construction impacts. We'll have a better sense of what we're talking about, and we really am working on a communication plan for how we're going to handle this, because again, this is a big project. We are refining the Moffett Boulevard design in terms of the street treatment for bicycles and the for that first block of Moffett as it comes in and gains access to the undercrossing. And we're continuing to refine the design of the S-curve that Evelyn's going to be to connect through, which does start to impact a little bit of Centennial Plaza. So we wanted to bring
And the
that forward.
previous drawing didn't show an S curve, did it? Or am I just looking at it
The
wrong?
original
It showed an
concept,
earlier concept.
yes, that was the original concepts had kept the two 90-degree, right?
So it showed the prior.
It showed the prior.
Okay.
And with the Castro Ped Mall and closing the 100 block permanently created an opportunity to refine that into more of this. It's the design speeds like 20 miles per hour S-curve with this super wide bike ped crossing, that type of thing. So this is just a heads up of, it's going to be a major item on your next agenda.
So as part of the architectural treatments, can or can we add to this slide that we also can comment on the public art?
We can definitely work with John Lang to bring forward a report on the public art and include
Okay.
it on the agenda packet.
So I'm unclear on how much we talk about that here versus in council. Nothing here. So you're just saying to bring it to council.
Well,
No, actually, I was saying
I'm
if this is
report on it
coming
more
to the
here.
CTC, I think it would be helpful to see the public art,
Okay,
if it's supposed to be aligned with the architectural treatments.
I see.
what I was saying is because today we just put it under staff report, we're
about it
not gonna
tonight.
get into discussion or you're
Yeah.
not gonna tell us what you think about it, but November 28th, you meet again. And this is, this grade step is gonna be an actual agenda item with a memo, and that will then be properly, publicly noticed, and you can definitely talk about it.
Great, thank you.
So in addition to that, the people who I know on the Visual Arts Committee talked about not only the art and where they put the art, but where there were opportunities for greenery within the. So I see three things interacting. The architectural treatments, there's probably more than three, but architectural treatments, the public art, which is not everywhere on the inside, and opportunities for green spaces. I would actually like to hear all three of those, because some of the people on the Visual Arts Committee were saying, we chose this place for visual arts because we thought that place we could put green, landscaping in or something growing. So I'd like to hear about all three of those.
Absolutely, and that was part of what we brought to Visual Arts Committee, was where we thought there was more potential opportunity for the green elements in terms of lighting, things like that. Okay, we can do that. All right, but with that update, I'll move on to my second item, which is that as you've seen this year and a little bit last year, I'm very happy to say that as we finish filling our vacancies in engineering, as we start to get a chance to catch up, we're moving forward a lot more projects. And a lot of them generate a lot of public interest. And one of the key things I value about the Council Transportation Committee is an opportunity to bring these things forward to you before we go to full council for feedback, hear more from the public. So there's more projects. And because of that, and your meetings have been running long, and I do apologize for that. We, instead of, for 2024, I'm proposing that instead of we just meet on an as-needed basis where we'll schedule it when we know we need it, I would like to pre-schedule 4 meetings for 2024, once a quarter. I know community membership can change, but we'd start with what seems to look best into the 3 calendars, and then the community membership changes will best. So I just wanted to give you a heads up there. I'm thinking a meeting in February, a meeting in May, a meeting in September, and a meeting in November, maybe it's November. Your agendas will be full, but hopefully 4 or 5 hour long agendas.
I'm fine with that. Yep. Yeah. As I was saying, it's still Monday. Like a council meeting.
All right, well, that concludes my committee staff.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to item 6.2, which are committee comments. Do any of the committee members have comments or reports to share with the committee? No worries. Okay, and then would any member of the public joining us virtually or in person like to provide comment on either item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or approach the lectern. I'm not seeing any, so thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which is adjournment. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next Council Transportation Committee meeting will be on November 28th, 2023. The meeting is adjourned at 9:20 p.m. Thank you.